The bright lights of the late-night studio reflected across the glossy stage floor as the audience applauded loudly. The band finished its intro music while the host walked confidently to his desk. Everything seemed like a perfectly normal night on television. The host smiled at the camera. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the incredibly talented Jennifer." The crowd cheered as Jennifer walked onto the stage. She waved politely and took a seat across from the host. At first, everything felt relaxed. They laughed about her latest movie, her recent award nomination, and a funny story from a film set. The audience laughed when Jennifer joked about forgetting her lines during a dramatic scene. "So you just made something up?" the host asked. Jennifer laughed. "Pretty much. I think the director almost had a heart attack." Everything looked friendly. Cameras moved smoothly around the stage while millions of viewers watched from home. But slowly, the conversation began to change. The host leaned forward slightly. "So Jennifer, your movie is getting great reviews," he said. "But people are also talking about something else." Jennifer's smile faded a little. "Oh?" "The rumors," the host continued, "about your conflict with a certain co-star." The audience became quieter. Jennifer shifted in her chair. "I'd rather focus on the movie," she replied calmly. But the host pressed again. "Well, viewers are curious." Jennifer forced a small smile. "I'm sure they are." For a moment, the tension was subtle. Most people watching probably didn't notice, but those sitting close to the stage could feel it. The atmosphere had changed. The host glanced at his notes again. "And there's also the story about what happened on set last month." Jennifer suddenly stopped smiling. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "That story isn't true," the audience murmured. The host chuckled awkwardly. "Well, that's what makes live TV interesting." But Jennifer didn't laugh. The tension in the room was beginning to grow, and no one yet realized. The interview was about to spiral out of control. The studio lights suddenly felt hotter. Jennifer crossed her arms slightly, clearly uncomfortable now. The host leaned back in his chair, but he didn't change the subject. "So let's talk about the argument with your co-star," he said. "Reports say you walked off set during filming." Jennifer shook her head slowly. "That's not what happened." The host raised an eyebrow. "So the reports are wrong?" "Yes," she replied firmly. The audience watched silently. Normally, interviews moved quickly, filled with jokes and laughter, but now every second felt heavier. The host smiled again, trying to keep things playful. "Well, social media seems pretty convinced." Jennifer's voice became colder. "Social media isn't always the truth." The audience clapped lightly in support, but the host kept pushing. "Some people say you have a reputation for being difficult." A few gasps came from the crowd. Jennifer blinked in disbelief. "Did you really just say that?" The host shrugged. "I'm just asking the questions people are asking." Jennifer leaned forward. "No, you're repeating gossip." The tension in the room was now impossible to ignore. Even the band members looked uncomfortable. The host tried to laugh. "Hey, it's just a conversation." Jennifer shook her head again. "No, it's not." The room fell completely silent. Jennifer looked out toward the audience, then back at the host. "I came here to talk about my work," she said, "not to defend myself against rumors." The host glanced at the camera. "Well, it's live television." Jennifer exhaled slowly. Then something unexpected happened. She removed her microphone. The audience gasped. "Jennifer," the host began, but she was already standing up. "This interview is over." And suddenly, the entire studio realized something shocking was happening live on air. For a moment, no one moved. The cameras kept rolling. Jennifer stood beside her chair, holding the microphone in her hand. The host looked stunned. "Wait, Jennifer, come on," he said nervously. "Let's not do this." But Jennifer shook her head. "You crossed the line." The audience began whispering loudly. Some people clapped in support, others looked confused. The host tried to recover the moment. "Hey, we're just having fun here." Jennifer's voice was calm but firm. "No, you turned it into something else." She placed the microphone on the desk. The sound echoed through the silent studio. "This was supposed to be about my movie," she said. "Instead, you tried to embarrass me." The host rubbed his forehead. "Jennifer, we can move on." But she was already stepping away from the chair. Cameras followed her as she walked toward the edge of the stage. The audience began reacting louder now. Some shouted encouragement. Others were simply stunned. The band members exchanged confused looks. The host turned toward the camera with an awkward smile. "Well, this is definitely live television." But Jennifer didn't look back. She walked past the stage curtain and disappeared backstage. For several seconds, the studio remained in complete silence. Then the host sighed. "Okay, wow." The audience nervously laughed. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, trying to regain control, "we'll be right back after the break." The camera slowly faded to black, but clips of the shocking moment were already spreading across the internet. Within minutes, millions of viewers were replaying the same question. Did Jennifer overreact? Or did she finally stand up for herself on live television?